president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, demanded an investigation into the military invasion plans considered by the Argentine army during the government of Mauricio Macri. The U.N Secretary General Antonio Guterres offered his mediation to seek a diplomatic solution to the growing tensions between Russia and the West. 7 Senegalese soldiers were released by separatist rebels from Senegal's southern Casamance region on Monday. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, demanded an investigation into the military invasion plans considered by the Argentine army during the government of Mauricio Macri. The president referred to the investigation by Argentine journalist Horacio Verbitsky, which reveals that between April and July 2019, military exercises were carried out for a possible invasion to Venezuela from Colombia. The Venezuelan president described as credible the report's denunciation on the preparation of the Argentine troops. At the same time, he expressed his hope that the Argentine institutions will pronounce themselves on the matter and act accordingly.
The article says that the general who directed these trainings and was in charge of invading Venezuela is a general still active in the army of Argentina. I find credible a report like this because the continental right, starting with Macri, well, they went to the extreme of breaking all the rules of the game of political and diplomatic coexistence between our peoples. They went to the extreme of disregarding international law and the sovereignty of the self-determination of the peoples. And they went to the extreme of thinking that they could wage war against Venezuela and that Venezuela was going to sit back and do nothing. I hope, I say it from here, from the presidential palace, Mr. Ambassador, ambassadors, ministers, chancellors, I hope that someone in Argentina dares to raise their voice so that an objective investigation is carried out into this accusation that has been made about the preparation of the Argentine army to invade Venezuela from Colombian territory. It is something very serious. I hope someone dares to raise their voice.
Now we move on to other topics. On Monday in Honduras, the public ministry started an investigation due to the finding of millions of expired medicines in warehouses of the Ministry of Health. The Special Prosecutor's Office for Transparency and Fight Against Corruption will be in charge to carry out in the investigations and determine the expiration date of the medicines and the people responsible for it. The announcement was made after the new Minister of Health, José Manuel Mateo, revealed Friday the finding of expired medicines worth $8,700,000 in warehouses. The Peruvian Congress debated on Monday the accusations against a number of legislators for alleged influence peddling. The Parliamentary Ethics Commission is pondered the accusations made against Congressperson Americo Gonza of the Peru Libre Party, who is accused of participating in meetings held at the government's palace with state officials in exchange for family benefits. The case of Congressperson Patricia Chirinos from Avanza País will also be evaluated for having offended the president, Pedro Castillo, in November 2021 during his participation in a political demonstration, and the Congressperson from Fuerza Popular, Luis Cordero Hon, for an alleged accusation of harassment of his ex-partner. Peruvian archaeologists found 6 pre-Inca mummies of infants dating from between 800 and 1000 before Christ. Alongside the mummies of the 6 children, they also found skeletal remains of 7 adults who, unlike the infants, were not wrapped in bundles.
We are finding the remains of sacrificed children that are associated with the mummy. We are talking about an individual that presented a very advanced, very sophisticated mummification process, so sophisticated that we can see how this has been preserved for so many years. But it is also the oldest evidence of children sacrifice in large quantities associated with the burial of an elite Carter.
On Monday, the trials for crimes against humanity in Argentina continue. This time, another former military is put in the crosshairs due to their roles as perpetrators of tortures in the clandestine detention center known as Pozo de Arana during the dictatorship of 1976 to 1983. Miguel Osvaldo Ete Collach will stand on the accused seat as the witness report from a process back in 2006 placed him in the center stage at Pozo de Arana. The witness, Jorge Julio Lopez, one of the detainees who survived the illegal acts against his physical and moral integrity, testified against Ete Collach back then and has been missing since. Another former member of the repressive forces, Julio César Garraicho, also faces the accusations from committing crimes against humanity inflicted on Lopez and 6 other people in Pozo de Arana. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has decided to invoke emergency powers across all of Canada to quell the protests by demonstrators who have paralyzed Ottawa and blocked border crossings in anger over the country's COVID-19 restrictions. That earlier act was previously invoked during World War I and World War II, and then notoriously by Trudeau's father, then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, in 1970 during a wave of violence by hardline Quebec separatists known as the October Crisis. In recent days, Trudeau rejected calls to use the military, but otherwise said all options are on the table to end the protests, including invoking the Emergencies Act, which gives him the government broad powers to restore order.
After discussing with Cabinet and caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. The Emergencies Act will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres offered his good offices to find a diplomatic solution to the rising tensions between Russia and the West. UN's leader insisted this Monday in search of a diplomatic solution and cautioned about the enormous cost that will have a confrontation. Furthermore, urged to the parties to de-escalation, in turn informed about his conversation with the foreign ministers, Russian and Ukrainian, to see his exhortation to peace. Guterres emphasized that diplomacy will prevail and as an organization they are not willing to allow that the possibility of a confrontation gain strength, which described as disastrous.
In the hours by the heightened tensions and increased speculation about potential military conflict in Europe, the price in human suffering, destruction and damage to European and global security is too high to contemplate. We simply cannot accept even the possibility of such a disastrous confrontation.
Likewise, Guterres stated that no exists an alternative to diplomacy for to reduce the rising tensions between Russia and the West.
There is no alternative to diplomacy. All issues, including the most intractable, can and must be addressed and resolved through diplomatic frameworks.
We stay on topic. On Monday, the Caribbean community, CARICOM, issued a statement expressing its deep concern over the tensions arising from the crisis in Ukraine and calling for a peace in the region. CARICOM calls on all actors to intensify diplomatic efforts to settle differences peacefully and to act responsible and with self-restraint and responsibility to avoid destabilization in that region. In this statement, the Caribbean community reaffirms its commitment to respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, non-interference in the internal affairs of another state, prohibition of the threat of the use of force, and the peaceful resolution of disputes, along with the maintenance of the international system and the world peace and security. Two boats carrying a total of 80 migrants arrived on Lampedusa Island on Sunday. The group included 4 women and a child and are reported to be in good health. Some people fell into the sea and are currently missing. Migrants said to have been traveling from Egypt, the Ivory Coast, Somalia and Sudan in precarious conditions and were 1.6 kilometers off the Italian island and were rescued and taken to land by border police and Coast Guard rescue vessels. The arrival came after another group of 7 small boats carrying a total of 267 migrants, mainly from Tunisia, arrived on the island in the south of Italy on Saturday. One person was killed and 14 people are injured after 2 commuter trains collided near Munich in southern Germany. The cause of the crash was not immediately clear. The 2 commuter trains apparently slamming into each other head-on on a single track line. More than 200 rescue workers and police were sent to the scene. The stretch of the track in Germany's Bavaria region was closed off after the incident, with rail replacement bus services running. German rail operator Deutsche Bahn said that relevant authorities had opened an investigation. According to local newspaper, around 95 passengers were on the 2 trains, and the train driver had got trapped in the mangled wreckage. Now we move on to other topics. The Peruvian judiciary barred Repsol executives from leaving the country due to their involvement in the oil spill considered the biggest ecological disaster in the Indian nation's recent history. The 18-month travel ban issued by Judge Romualdo Agüedo prevents 4 executives of the Spanish oil and energy company from leaving Peru. This includes Repsol Peru's Spanish President Jaime Fernández Cuestaluca de Tena. A United Nations expert mission concluded a report on the event, estimating that the consequences will affect the environment of the Central Coast for 6 to 10 years. At least 11,900 barrels of spilled oil have covered more than 1,400 hectares of sea and land, as well as more than 500 hectares of marine fauna reserves in protected natural areas. And Brazil's Vice President Hamilton Mourão acknowledged that the deforestation alert figures for the Amazon issued by the Institute for Spatial Research are true. According to the study, deforestation in the Amazon reached more than 13,000 kilometers in 2021, an increase of 22% over the previous year. In this sense, the vice commander also admitted the inability of the Bolsonaro government to act in a forest region degraded by extractivism. In the same context, the President Bolsonaro has been accused since 2019 by environmental activists due to the growth of deforestation in the Amazon. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back from the south. 7 Senegalese soldiers who were captured 3 weeks ago were released by separatist rebels from Senegal's southern Casamance region on Monday. The soldiers were taken across the border to an area near the Gambian village of Bajajara and delivered to officials from the Gambian government and the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS. 4 Senegalese soldiers were killed, while 7 were captured alive. The freed hostages appear in good health and left the area in Red Cross jeeps. The charity stated that it had visited the soldiers in captivity and provided medical care. In South Africa, a group of parents and students demonstrated in front of the Randfontein School to express their discontent with acts of racism committed at the educational institution. The authorities reported that the protests started during a fight between two groups of students, a white student who spoke in a derogatory manner against a black student. Several representatives of political parties and law enforcement were present during the demonstration. Police agents proceeded against the crowd by dispersing it with water cannons. A document was drafted to denounce the deplorable nature of the incident, and an investigation is already underway. In Tehran, Iran's foreign and defense minister says that Western parties are deeply committed in the Vienna talks and in restoring the 2015 nuclear agreement during a joint press conference with his Iranian counterpart in Tehran.
I believe that the other parties to the JCPOA, in particular Western countries, are deeply committed to making this work. I would not say that publicly if I didn't believe it. I would not be here if I didn't believe that there was an opportunity now. A restoration of the JCPOA in full would secure rapid and substantial sanction relief for Iran.
Iran claimed on Monday that the United States cancelled a prisoner swap deal a night before the agreed date. Saeed Khatibzadeh, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson, said that unfortunately a deal for prisoner swap was once achieved, but the US side went back on its word on the night before the agreed date. He did not offer details when the agreement was made or when it was supposed to be implemented. The US did not immediately acknowledge this.
Unfortunately, a deal for prisoner swap was once achieved, but the American side went back on its word on the night before the agreed date. It proved once again how careful you must be when you make any agreement with Washington, because you never know if they will honor the agreement even if they announce it. Currently, the issue of prisoner swap is still being discussed in a parallel route to Vienna talks.
Now we address other topics. In China, the government will donate $100 million to WHO's COVAX initiative to promote equitable distribution of coronavirus vaccines worldwide. The Asian giant has recently donated $100 million to COVID-19 Global Access Fund for vaccines, boosting the production and distribution of the SARS-CoV-2 immunizer. China already donated more than 100 million doses of anti-COVID-19 vaccines to developing countries in the past, in addition to those provided to the International COVAX Initiative for Equitable Global Vaccination. The COVAX system was created with the aim of promoting equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, especially in low and middle-income countries. The most important border crossing between Canada and the U.S., the Ambassador Bridge, was reopened after being inoperative for a week due to protests by truckers. On Sunday, according to the company that owns the facility, the reopening was possible thanks to the state of emergency declared in Ontario and an order issued by the judge on Friday. Meanwhile, Canadian police made around 30 arrests and seized 12 vehicles that were blocking traffic on Huron Church Road near the bridge. In the Dominican Republic, vaccination of children between 5 and 11 years of age against COVID-19 will begin this Monday, subject to a parental consent. According to the Minister of Public Health, Daniel Rivera, the vaccine for the infant population is well discussed and agreed upon in several meetings by the different specialized medical societies in the country. The immunization will be applied in all the educational centers of the 18 regional divisions and the 122 educational districts in coordination with the health authorities. The pediatric society is informed about the benefits offered by the administration of the vaccine, which so far has not generated any health problems. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesureenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.